So we're here talking tea time with Carol B. All things real estate and insurance. So, hey Carol, thanks for joining today.
Hi. What's up?
So we're gonna ask some questions of each other, everything that you guys want to hear about real estate and insurance. And if you like this content, remember to like and subscribe. So, Carol,
What?
my buyers and my sellers are always asking me about flood insurance. What is something that they need to look for when they're looking or when they're selling their home with regards to flood insurance?
So in flood, you have two different types of market. You have FEMA and you have surplus markets and standard markets. So depending on the zone that you fall into. So flood is divided from A all the way through X. So the closer that you are to A, the closer the flood zone goes to A, the higher the premium, meaning the amount of dollars that you will pay, will be. And the closer that you are to X, the less amount of money that you will be paying for your insurance. Now, also when you take a look at flood policies, sometimes you can cover the inside, meaning the contents, so like pillows, sofa, anything that goes inside. And then you can also cover the outside. So that's called the structure. And for many policies, sometimes people don't really take care of the contents part of it, the inside. Most of them do a little bit of content, a whole lot more of the structure, because they want to take care of that. A lot of people think, you know what, if my stuff flooded, I can replace up another structure in my house.
Got it. So most people are more concerned, you're saying, with the rebuild and the structure versus their like personal items.
Yes.
That makes sense because, honestly, after it's been flooded, you probably just need a whole new refresh.
That's what happens a lot of times. And many people don't know a whole lot about flood insurance. And I mean, really, who does? Because FEMA sometimes, you have a lot of people that work with the government and it's a little bit harder to get a policy with them as opposed to in the standard market. So like with FEMA, when you purchase a home, after 30 days, your policy will actually start and will get approved. Within the standard market, 7 days, the approval, there's no waiting period for you. You just get it after 7 days and you're good to go.
Interesting. Yeah, so there are different designations on the MLS that will show you if the property is within an A, a B, or an X flood zone. And that will tell me, your realtor, whether or not it's very likely that you're going to need insurance that covers flood. And that's a consideration you want when you're buying. But of course, when you're selling, you also need to be able to disclose that information to the, future buyer because they need to be made aware. It's also public record, but it's always good practice to just be transparent with these things.
Sometimes the sellers don't know because like 100 years ago or like 20 and something years ago, it wasn't in the flood zone. So when you actually want to purchase a home, then that's when you find out because the lender will let you know. And then the seller goes like, well, I never had to have it. So that sometimes happens too.
So that actually happened to me I was selling a house in Simsbury. And Simsbury recently reassessed for flood. So different areas will regularly reassess for flood. So the buyer's agents were asking, well, do we need flood insurance? And I said, we'll find out. Ultimately, they didn't, but it changed the property from what was a 500-year floodplain to a 100-year floodplain. And, it just really is something you want to be aware of. So that's great. That's great. Another question a lot of my sellers have are things like on your policy, when you have lived in a house for 30 plus years, or even unlikely to be that long, maybe 15 years, what is something that you should really be keeping up with in terms of maintenance that most people don't think of when they're just living in their home, but then if something happened and they would want it covered, would not be covered? Did that make sense?
Yeah, so a lot of times people forget about their roofs, and roofs are so important, especially when you're thinking about selling your home. Because if your roof, like the shingles that go on top of your roof, they have like this tiny granular spots. Sometimes I call them like little pimples, like they're porosity. And that's very helpful when we do inspections, because in real estate, when you purchase a home, there's an inspection. But when you purchase insurance, we also have an inspection. And if you do not have those little pimples on the composite shingles that you currently own, whenever that person buys a home, we're gonna do an inspection, and I will tell you right now that that person's not gonna be happy with your realtor, with the seller, because that means that they have to replace a roof right away. Otherwise, they won't be able to get standard insurance. And from there, you go to surplus lines, which is very, very expensive. Nobody wants to go there. Alleviate that headache for yourself, for your new seller, because put yourself in their situation. Think about yourself. You just bought a home, and now you find out that you have to spend $20,000 to $30,000 to replace a roof.
Yikes.
Yes, it happens. Not often, but when it does, I consider homes like onions. I think I've told you about this before, because it's like, I don't know, I love onions. I have to put in all my seasonings, just onions. I have to have it. But a home is just like that. It makes you cry. It's so good. So
there's
you
layers.
And there's layers, right? And so there's layers. So that's why I consider always homes that are just like an onion.
So, like, all right, and we're talking about the roof. So, during an inspection, an inspector typically will evaluate the roof from a very cursory level. They're looking at, the condition of the shingles. They're also looking at areas that may, have been lifted or blown away due to heavy winds and things of that nature. But they're also looking for if there's a need for replacement or if it's at the end of its life. So is there any specific indicator that would tell an inspector or a future buyer what that range of insurance, the indicator that would make you either need to replace your house or replace your roof or not?
Back to the pimples. It's all about the granular, the porosity portion that goes on top of the shingles. So once there is none left, do not buy that house.
Okay.
And
or
sometimes,
get the roof replaced.
Or ask for the seller to replace it before even, because that's a very high expense.
True.
And not only it's high expense, but once you get the insurance, it becomes even higher, because now we know that you have to replace it. So when you shop around for insurance, even if they cancel you, the other insurance company is also gonna know.
And if you remember in our last video, we talked about some of the ways to improve your home and get it ready for the market. So don't forget to look back on that video to learn more about the benefits of replacing a roof before sale. So the other thing that we definitely, we know as buyers agents is that there's a good chance the seller will know the age of the roof. So is there a timeline in which the insurance company will say, okay, there's only 5 years left in this roof, or something like that? Is there a time frame that usually?
So insurance companies, they like roofs that are no older than 10 years. We love those type of roofs, because that means that you have another 10 years to go, and that means that you will possibly replace it within those 10 years that you have left on the roof. once you call us and you let us know that the roof is like 15 to 20 years, we're like, okay, we'll take it. We definitely will take it. But if there's an inspection that comes up and your roof doesn't get the seal of approval, then we know. At that point, you either have to fix, replace, and a lot of people, I mean, it depends on their situation and where they are. So if it's a first home and they find themselves in that situation, I don't know if you deal with that many, you deal with more listings, so you don't really see that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of first-time home buyers, it's really hard for them because their first home, they probably put all their savings into it. And by the time they get to the roof portion, they're like, ugh, we didn't plan for it. So that's when it comes a little bit hectic. Another part that we take a look at it is the heat and hot water.
Interesting. So
yes.
They want to see that the hot water heater is a certain age.
So we want them to be at least renovated or updated.
What would be considered updated?
So when you do your plumbing,
mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that plumbing is well. We want to make sure that electricity is no less than 100 amps. A lot of insurance so a lot of insurance companies will not take you if it's less than 100 amps, and they will require you to update it so it's at the 100 amps. It's one of those things where like a lot of people don't think about it, but insurance we look at the risk.
Makes sense. And honestly, most of the houses in Connecticut have anywhere between 100 and 200 amp service because we have things like electric heat in some homes and we have AC, which is absolutely necessary, like no doubt about it. So, in order to support the service needs, usually the amps are important. And, again, on that last video, we did talk about upgrading your electrical. So another benefit, and here's proof positive that, making those updates definitely will give you the benefits in your bottom line.
Yeah, so any of those updates, or I want to say updates, renovations, when you're selling your home, if they are within the 10-year period, by the time that new person buys a home, you're good to go. That person's going to be happy because they're going to get a better premium. That means that they're not going to get like huge increase in their policy. They're going to get what it's right for them. And on top of that, they're going to be happy with the home. They're not going to be like, oh my God, why did I bought this home? Why did I get myself in this situation? Like, they're not going to have that buyer's remorse because there's not a lot of work to do. And it's easier for them. And in the life of your home, of your precious home that you grew up in, that your kids were in there, it just keeps going. And I guess you live a little bit of yourself in there too. I don't know, so I think so.
Yeah, there's so much value in homes. I just love them. And if you're enjoying this content, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe.
Where is the button?
Down here.
Okay, let's subscribe, y'all. Let's subscribe.
So another thing that a lot of my sellers ask, and it's usually because they've been in their homes for a long time, and maybe they have done regular scheduled maintenance, but is there anything specific other than what we already talked about with roofs that might be something that they're not thinking about?
When you have pools, that's one part that a lot of people forget. A lot of insurance companies will not take the home that has a pool that does not have a lock.
You mean a gate?
A gate. There we go.
Yeah.
My English to Spanish brain. So if it doesn't have a gate, a lot of insurance, a gate, G-A-T-E, a gate. If it doesn't have that, a lot of insurance companies will say, no, don't go so far. We're not going to take you if it doesn't have that. And some insurance companies will take you and will make you put it within the 60-day period. And if you don't put it within those 60-day periods, they'll cancel you. So
good to know.
That's a part that like a lot of people forget because it's not like they get inspections all the time.
Right.
So
and same thing with radon, right? So like a lot of people forget that you should really be regularly testing for radon. It's like you get your home inspection, you test for radon, the levels are low but not concerning. Even if they're low, like you just don't know because it's gas. It's a odorless gas that just is coming in from the ground. So, you know, these are like areas where if you're living in your house for a really long time, you're probably not thinking about it. So always important to keep that in mind. And, you know, ever since the pandemic, everybody seems to want a pool. That was like the number one feature that people asked for in homes in 2021. I'll be interested to see how things change in 2022 now that things are, you know, opening up.
Yeah.
But
I mean, a lot of people I've had a lot of people that have purchased their home, and a lot of my elderly couples that have listed their home. And I've noticed that my buyers, they're always thinking about, okay, what is the next thing that I have to do to this home so I don't have to worry about it?
Preventative maintenance.
Yes. And this type of new buyers, they're more educated, because like 3 years ago, they weren't asking questions. They were just saying, oh, my house is in 123 Banana Street. How much is this going to cost me? But nowadays, people ask questions, and this is vital. If you're purchasing a home and this is your first time purchasing insurance, ask as many questions as you can. For example, never insurance will cover mice. No.
And we live in a pretty, like, you know, rural state, so a lot of people have mice. You know, it's not like an infestation, but a couple of field mice is not it's not uncommon.
It's not unheard of. Yes, and the reason why we don't cover it is because insurance is there for when accidents happen, not for when you forgot that you saw a mice and you didn't take care of it. So mice, they don't come out just like overnight and like 20 little baby mice are in your house. It just doesn't happen that way. It happens over time. So that's why insurance doesn't do that. The other part.
So what you're saying is that they don't cover things that happen slowly over time.
Right. And infestations are one of those things that do have, like, a lot of termites. Those are things that are never going to be covered. Bed bugs.
Ooh.
If you're a flipper, if you're like buying duplex, 4-unit homes, none of that is covered.
Good to know. So, you know, you bring up some great points, Carol, and I think a lot of people forget that, you know, they're not always renovating their homes, you know, and especially in this market, people are buying top dollar and they want everything to be done for them because they're paying so much, right? So, you know, I think it's important, especially in this market, to have your upgrades, to be aware of what your house has the potential for in terms of losses. And of course, you know, you don't get back into those nooks and crannies a lot. Sometimes it takes a professional cleaner to get into the attic, to clean out those, you know, old boxes of things that you just shoved in the back of the attic. And then they can tell you what you might need to consider taking care of, right? So, yeah, so these are great. This is great insight. And, you know, is there anything else that you think would be important to think about for someone who's getting ready to sell their house, especially this spring in 2022?
The most important part that I see as an insurance agent is the benefit of having a great realtor to list the home for you. Because if you have a great realtor, all of these things that I'm mentioning, you don't even have to worry about it. Your realtor, it will become your best friend. I almost wanted to say crime, but that's not a crime. But it will become your best friend when selling your home. Because that's, if not, why are they helping you sell your home? If they can help you answer those questions, help you out with, okay, maybe let's reassess the home because roof needs to be replaced or the paint is coming off. Like a lot of times, if you have a buyer that wants to buy your home and the paint is coming off, The FHA loans are not going to approve it. VA loans, they're not going to want to approve it. And they're very strict. So with that being said, ask the right questions to the listing agent that you're going to choose, because they will help you sell your home, not only for the top dollar, but they will alleviate a huge headache. Don't forget to subscribe, because this is great information that Robin is doing, and YouTube is free. So ask away.
Yes, thank you, Carol. So that's the tea for today, and there'll be more tea tomorrow. But thank you, Carol, and like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.
Yay! All right, here. Oh my God.